RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Jason Fechner. The legislative session just ending, a flurry of activity as the clock ran out. As always, a lot to talk about what state lawmakers accomplished this session. We'll do that coming up. But first, a major story this week, the surprise guilty plea from the man charged with killing IMPD officer Perry Wren. That plea means that Major Davis will not face the death penalty. For almost 3 years now, since Officer Perry Wren was gunned down during a shootout, Major Davis had denied his guilt. In an exclusive jailhouse interview with our own Rafael Sanchez back in 2015, Davis had even said that he would sue the city for police brutality. Now he's singing another tune, and while this one will spare his life, it will put Davis in prison for the rest of it.
Obviously, we were pleased that, based upon our conversation with counsel, that the defendant was ready to accept responsibility for this, and contrary to his protest in the past, that he was willing to accept responsibility, which he obviously has done now by his guilty plea this morning.
Davis's formal sentencing is now set for this coming Thursday. We'll follow all the developments, of course, right here on RTV6. Now to the State House on this Sunday, where lawmakers burned the midnight oil, as they often do at the end of the session, where the state's 2-year budget is passed. Lawmakers approving that massive spending bill, and they also easily passed an expansion of Indiana's pilot pre-K program. Another 15 counties will now be added to the 5 counties getting state dollars to provide pre-K to at-risk kids. And in a controversial move, lawmakers will also let some students use vouchers to attend pre-K classes run by private schools as well. Meanwhile, State House Republicans led the charge behind that massive road funding deal. Senate President David Long dubbing it historic. Nearly $900 million for state roads, $340 million for local infrastructure. That would be spread out through 2024. The measure moves gas tax revenue to a special transportation fund over the next 5 years. Not beginning next year, though, but in year 2020. The state's gas tax is also going up 10 cents a gallon to pay for it all as soon as this summer.
Well, I hope long-term that the citizens see, orange barrels out there and see some infrastructure projects that they think are long overdue.
We're talking about giving a 42% cut to large corporations, but we are asking Hoosiers to pay more at the pump, and that's not something that we think is the right way to go. We think we can put people to work and build those roads in another way.
Democratic State Chair John Zodi joining us there this week. Meanwhile, Governor Holcomb issued a statement on the funding plan saying the plan will strengthen our global reputation as the crossroads of America. This plan provides the tools necessary to maintain what we have, finish what we started, and invest in the future. Also, Republicans at the State House agreed to close what they say is that cold beer loophole used by a convenience store owner to get around the state's alcohol laws. The measure targets Jay Ricker, who started selling carry-out cold beer last month at 2 Ricker's gas stations. He says he'll likely have to stop sales in April of 2018. The measure sets stringent alcohol sales rules, but with a long list of exemptions, like for golf courses and hotels going forward. And a measure pushing for more religious freedom in public and charter schools easily passed. That plan says that schools may not discriminate based on religion, and also spells out certain rights, including allowing religious clothing at school and prayer before, during, or after school as well. A provision requiring school districts to create a forum for prayer at school activities, well, that was taken out. From the State House now to the state of our city, as Mayor Joe Hogsett both look back and ahead to the Circle City's future this week in his second State of the City address. Wednesday evening, Mayor Hogsett addressed a number of issues and plans that he has for the coming months. Among those, the installation of thousands of energy-efficient streetlights, helping to provide permanent housing for the homeless, and the demolition of up to 2,000 abandoned homes across the city. The mayor also touched on still developing plans to get more illegal guns off the streets.
We must get guns out of the hands of our children, and we must get guns out of the hands of our young people. Together, we can send the message that one life, young or old, lost to gun violence is one life too many.
Mayor Hogsett also said for the first time since 2003 that the city has increased funding to Indy Parks and Recreation going forward. Meanwhile, the commute in and out of the Circle City for thousands living north of Indy is about to change as the city of Carmel this week rolled out major changes to Range Line Road. The city this week released these digitally enhanced flyover images of what Range Line Road should look like in the future. Range Line, of course, runs north and south, basically in between and parallel to Keystone and US 31. A city rep says the plan is to basically get more cars off Range Line, opening up to pedestrians walking, running, or biking, reducing 5 lanes of traffic down to just 2. They tell us it will also make the area more attractive to local businesses.
The roundabouts move so many more cars per hour that we don't need all that pavement. So we're going to enlarge the pedestrian areas, add sculpture, add trees, benches, and things to make it more pedestrian friendly, while at the same time making it a lot safer too, as we know that roundabouts reduce accidents both for vehicles and pedestrians.
During this project, they hope to leave Range Line Road open to traffic. However, for those roundabouts, they'll have to temporarily close those intersections. The first part of the project will start at City Center Drive and Range Line Road with posted signs right now warning that project could actually start as soon as tomorrow. Our political insiders here to break down everything that took place at the State House this week, plus Indiana's former governor with a brief face-to-face stare-down with North Korea, the vice president's trip overseas, and Congressman Trey Hollingsworth joins us next. This is Indianapolis This Week, only on RTV6.
Made to mix, so you can make it you.
As President Trump said yesterday, in the face of this great evil, and I quote, "We have to be strong and we have to be vigilant." Today, the people of Paris have our condolences and our prayers. The people of France are on our hearts today. And the people of Indonesia can be confident in the wake of this latest attack. We will not relent in our effort to end terrorism and the threat it presents to both of our peoples, and I pledge to you our continued cooperation against terrorism in the uncertain days in which we live.
Vice President Mike Pence there Friday in Indonesia, wrapping up his tour of several nations in Asia before departing for Australia, highlighting the most recent attack in Paris as he worked to allay fears about the Trump administration's role in international affairs. This week he extended an olive branch of sorts to Muslim-majority nations as the fate of 2 administration-issued travel bans against several Muslim-majority countries are still tied up in court. These comments made in Indonesia Thursday.
As the largest majority Muslim country, Indonesia's tradition of moderate Islam, frankly, is an inspiration to the world, and we commend you and your people. In your nation, as in mine, religion unifies. It doesn't divide. It gives us hope for a brighter future.
The former Indiana governor's trip overseas comes in the wake of more military action this month around the world, with that missile strike against Syria and the bombing of an ISIS compound in Afghanistan. North Korea, of course, also in the spotlight this week as well, as he visited the demilitarized zone on the Korean Peninsula. Let's welcome in Republican Congressman now, Trey Hollingsworth. Congressman Hollingsworth, great to see you as always. Concerns, questions about North Korea and where our nation's relationship stands with them at this moment?
Well, I think what I hear from Hoosiers all the way across the 9th District is a feeling of lack of safety. They don't feel it's safe here at home again. And I think that's due to a lot of factors. A lot of those factors have to do with North Korea, with Iran, with Syria, and other issues around the globe. One need only spin the globe to see some of the challenges in foreign relations that we have before us. And I lay that at the feet of the Obama administration, an administration that was too timid to stand up and say, this is what we will accept and this is what we won't accept for interaction with our country. And I'm glad that President Trump is standing up and drawing those lines in the sand and willing to stand behind those lines in the sand as well.
Does North Korea pose an actual threat to the safety of the U.S.?
I think we definitely believe so, and we believe that their intent is to pose a more and more danger to the United States, and we need to be sure that we are ever vigilant for those things that are looking to cause us harm, those challenges around the world. And I'm happy to have a president that's willing to stand up and say that these things we won't accept. These are lines that can't be crossed, that we need to protect American interest, Americans, and America first and foremost.
We have seen an uptick in highly visible military activity over the past few weeks. We had the bombing in Syria. You had the bombing in Afghanistan as well. What is this message sending to the rest of the world right now?
Look, I don't think it's necessarily about a message that we're trying to send so much as a following through of a campaign promise. A campaign promise that was made by Republicans to say that we want to ensure American values, American principles, and American safety are upheld anywhere and everywhere throughout the world. And I think we're following through on that promise. I think we are ensuring that we draw those lines in the sand that are so important so that our enemies fear us rather than Americans and Hoosiers sitting at home afraid of what other countries might do to America.
Congressman Trey Hollingsworth, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And let's jump across the aisle right now as we heard from Indianapolis Democratic Congressman Andre Carson this week, serving, of course, on the House Intelligence Committee. Carson says the U.S. should be firm and have a reasonable show of force in negotiations.
The casualties that they could cause in the region alone could create a humanitarian crisis that we would have to ultimately respond to. And so in a very real sense, Wolf, I think it's important that we do show a sizable presence in the region.
Carson on with CNN's Wolf Blitzer there. He says that North Korea needs to know the U.S. is serious and is, in his words, not here to play. Never here to play. Our own political insiders, Adam Kirsch for the Democrats, and our favorite conservative commentator, Abdul Hakim Shabazz. Fellas, thanks so much for being here. And let's start with that question. Is North Korea an actual threat to the United States that we need to genuinely worry about right now? Abdul, let's start with you.
The North Koreans are a threat. The degree is to what degree of threat are they actually, if I could sort of use typical political speak. They are a threat to the region. South Korea, because we have thousands of American troops stationed in that area. You don't want North Korea to be able to use nuclear weapons in a way that could destabilize the region and cause them trouble. So are they a threat? Can they reach us tomorrow? No, but it should be a threat we should be concerned about and be consistent with. The answer is yes.
Adam?
Yes, North Korea is a threat. It's been a threat, well, since the Korean War. What I think is troubling is I don't think the Trump-Pence administration has put forward a coherent strategy in any foreign policy issue. In Syria, in Afghanistan, now in North Korea. We saw Pence say he's going to stare down the North Koreans and that's going to solve the problem. The problem is we need something beyond just one bomb, just one day of planning. We need a coherent foreign policy strategy that this administration just doesn't have.
Those military actions overseas, and even Vice President Pence going to the demilitarized zone, very high profile. They steal a lot of headlines. Are there political implications and ramifications that are driving some of these decisions over there, Adam?
I think so. We saw, Donald Trump, 2013 tweets almost always come back to bite Donald Trump in 2017, and he said one that in 2013 that the president's approval numbers are falling, so look for him to bomb something. Well, that's what we saw President Trump do.
Abdul?
Once again, it's an analogy I used before. It's like the sheriff in those old Western movies. There's a big bar fight, and the sheriff is trying to restore order, then he finally takes his gun and fires it in the air, and everybody looks at him, and so it's like, okay, now what do we do? They've gotten the world's attention, with the bombings and the military action they've taken, but the question is, this one of those rare moments when Adam and I will agree with each other, and I think it took Donald Trump to do it. What's next?
Let's jump from overseas right down the street to the State House. Your take on the road funding plan that Republicans had pushed for this week, Abdul?
Actually, since basically what they did is something I suggested they do about a month ago in a column.
They might be reading you online, Abdul. That's what it was, I think.
I think it's brilliant. It solves the 20-year long-term road funding issue. It does shift the sales tax and the gasoline in a responsible way, still leaving circuit breakers in case there's budget trouble down the road. It indexes the gas tax to inflation. There's a lot of money, more money for locals than has ever been done before in Indiana history, and so I like it.
Adam?
Let's be clear. Republicans raise taxes on working people to preserve tax cuts for businesses. They care more about the carrier bottom line than they do about the workers laid off from carrier. They increase gas taxes by 58% and index it to inflation, so it will go up every year. They refuse to indexate wage laws to inflation, but gas taxes they'll raise going forward. Indiana will be the 5th highest gas tax state in the country, and let's see if we've got infrastructure to match it.
Abdul, what would be the alternative?
You cannot be the crosswords of America with crappy roads. It is just that simple.
The argument, though, there could be funding coming from somewhere else. Where could that funding come from?
I don't know where that funding is going to come from. You can't rely on the federal government for your transportation funding because they don't know exactly what they're going to do. And the gas taxes are the fundamental user fees. You drive the car, you use the roads, you pay the gas tax. And by the way, if you're worried about spending a whole lot of money on gas and inflating your tires to proper pressure and keeping your engine tuned up will give you a lot more gas mileage. So this whole line about look at Republicans raising taxes, whatever. They actually had a solid structural plan that is paid for, that addresses Indiana's long-term problems, long-term road funding issues long-term.
Well, Democrats actually had a plan that would just simply roll back business tax cuts that have been given the last several years, create the same funding. It was actually led by Dan Forrestal in the State House, and that would have worked. What's the problem with that?
Well, first of all, it wouldn't have worked because one of those taxes the Democrats wanted to roll back was actually an income tax rollback cut that had already happened. They said, no, we just put this on hold, but already taken place. They're actually going to raise taxes, on working Hoosiers. So, no offense, if Democrats had a solid, credible plan, it would have been in place a long time ago. By the way, we're still paying for roads and bonding when Evan Bayh was governor, because that was a Democrat plan. Just borrow more money and then let somebody else's grandchildren pay for it.
Well, but Mitch Daniels had major moves, which was going to solve our roads for 75 years. I mean, let's be honest. Indiana hasn't funded infrastructure adequately on either side. Republicans choose to place it on working families, on new taxes, such as taxes on electric cars, taxes on hybrid vehicles. Democrats proposed
hybrid vehicles, electric cars that also use the roads.
They do. But they also use less gas. So you said, well, inflate your tires and you'll save taxes. But it's not just inflating your tires.
That's why they only pay
we're stalling new emerging technologies.
That's why they only pay a $75 fee, for the hybrid, or a $150 fee. I mean, because the hybrids vehicles and the electric vehicles, you use the roads just like everybody else. You don't pay as much because you don't pay necessarily using gas taxes.
We could debate this all morning. Technically, the ship has sailed. The car is out of the garage and onto those new roads. Quickly, when it comes to Rickers, surprised by the fate of that going forward, Abdul?
Not necessarily, because the liquor lobby is still extremely powerful here in Indiana, but this whole fight and debate is not over by a long shot, that I can tell you.
Adam, where does it go from here?
Let's be clear. The legislature singled out Rickers, who did everything legally and within the letter of the law. The legislature, or more importantly, the liquor store lobby, didn't like it, and they went after it to change the law to keep Rickers out of the cold beer business.
Finally, a few seconds left. Let's get back to Washington. Donald Trump's taxes back in the spotlight with tax day this week. A lot of protests around the country. Do we ever see Donald Trump's tax returns, Adam?
No. Donald Trump is now hiding behind he's under audit. Well, by law, the president's taxes are always under audit. So no, I don't think we'll ever see them.
10 seconds, Abdul. Should we care?
I'm more concerned about putting Americans to work than what Donald Trump pays in taxes.
Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Adam Kirsch, thank you for joining us, and you can join us, of course, on Twitter as well at Indy This Week. Up next here on the show on Indianapolis This Week, recognizing those who give back. We'll take you to a special ceremony where those very giving Hoosiers were recognized this week, including one who's now up for an even bigger award. That's next on Indy This Week. And welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. A moment in the spotlight this week for those who dedicate their lives to giving back and improve the lives of so many people living right here in central Indiana. This year's Jefferson Awards winners were recognized in our annual awards ceremony at the Indiana Landmark Center. Here's RTV6's Melissa Mahadeo.
Standing in the spotlight,
Amanda Milner.
Are the men and women,
Reverend Charles Harrison,
who make central Indiana better. Prestigious Jefferson Award winners, like 12-year-old survivor Luke Anrich, who turned his battle with leukemia into a battle cry for other patients, or Chris Busick, who helps pregnant women who need a hand.
You guys ready to rock and roll? Start pedaling in 3, 2, 1, go, 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 go.
Like Tom Hanley, who found his calling in bikes and kids.
I was an elite level cyclist that had given me a chance to travel all over the world racing, and I'd been involved in this commercial vehicle accident, and all of a sudden life changed forever. I walked away with 2 broken vertebrae and a brain injury, and my best friend had been killed.
Hanley will now represent Indiana in the Jefferson Awards National Washington, D.C. competition.
Tom Hanley.
I'm so proud to be a Hoosier. I'm so proud of what the city is and what we continue to strive to be.
You just leave tonight and you want to go change the world. You want to volunteer, you want to do acts of service, and there's so many amazing people doing amazing things.
Allison Millington herself, pretty amazing, receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award benefiting the community for her countless hours of work, particularly for helping to host the 2012 Super Bowl, which put Indiana in national limelight.
If you are a friend and you get sick, she's going to spend the night in the hospital, not send flowers or visit.
Ordinary men and women making an extraordinary difference. Melissa Mahadeo, RTV6 News.
So many fantastic people there, Melissa. Thanks. Do you think that you know someone who deserves the Jefferson Award? Visit theindychannel.com to learn more about the Jefferson Awards and nominate someone making a difference right here in our own community.